Welcome everyone. I'm Laura Rogers and this is SharePoint Power Hour, and I have Joelle here. Say hello.
Hello, everybody.
And this is our show that we do on most Wednesdays at 11 Central, where we talk about all kinds of cool, fun, out-of-the-box things we can do with SharePoint, Office 365, and all those related products, which is just basically an endless 6-year long string of all kinds of things geared towards business users. So we're not programmers, and so we avoid things that are super technical. I have an admin background, so I do, talk about some admin stuff every now and then. And when it gets to be anything with code, sometimes, you can figure out the logic and the syntax of things, but we're not going to get into any kind of hardcore programming. So today's topic is going to be several ways to do charts in Power Apps. That's Power Apps. It's 2 words now. I think I mentioned that last time. It's so funny saying it like that. All right. So there is a Power BI tile, which is just something that's already exists that you can use in Power Apps, that you could just plop an existing Power BI chart in there just using this Power BI control. And so if you have Power BI, you can just point to a specific chart. So I'll go over a quick demo of that and how to pass some parameters to your charts. And then there are a couple of other, if you don't have Power BI, because that does, it's a higher license level, or it's, costs extra money. And I'm not a licensing guru, but it is definitely not just out of the box for everyone. All right. So we also have some chart controls that are just chart controls that have always been there in Power Apps, and I'll go over what those are and how those work. And then we also have the ability to just create some kind of charts or visuals from scratch. And so you can just use logic and just shapes and things like that in Power Apps to make your own charts and make it look however you want, and make have the bars be in relation to certain data and things like that. So we'll go over all 3 different methods. So we have an hour, so I'm going to try to kind of split it in thirds. So these, we're not going to go too deep into any one of these, but it'll at least kind of get the wheels turning and get you understanding some of these different concepts. And this ability with the Power BI tile, the ability to pass parameters to it, is pretty brand new. I think it's only been out in the last couple of months. It's something that people have really, really wanted for a while, because before that, all you could do was put a static report in your Power App, and there was no way to make it show any specific filtered subset of information. So, and I put a link in the chat in the general channel to the reference. It's called, it's a page on the Power Apps website in the community called Creating Dynamic Power BI Tiles and Power Apps. Those are the steps that I followed, but I'm going to show you just, some more to it and kind of how I figured out how to make that apply to other data. All right. And I'll go ahead and share my desktop. Okay, so here we have when I go to the Insert tab in Power Apps, I have, this actually used to be over here under Input, just with all the list of controls, and they moved it to where it makes sense under Charts. So when I go to Charts, I can insert a Power BI tile. I'll just kind of stick this on top of some other stuff I had on here. But as soon as you insert the Power BI tile, and this is actually much more intuitive than it used to be also, I can pick my workspace in Power BI, dashboard, and tile. So let me go show you real quick what I have in Power BI. So when I went to the waffle menu and went to Power BI, I'm going to go to my workspace and just go to look at the list of my own dashboards down here. So when I go to my workspace, I've got one called Google Analytics, which is one of those, free ones that I installed that's tied directly to my own Google Analytics. And then I've got one that was a sample one. They have a lot of samples in here. I'm not going to go too deep into Power BI because I'm not a Power BI person. It's actually really fun. I wish I had more spare time to really dig in and do some of this stuff because it's really, really neat stuff. This is a sample though. It's a human resources sample that I downloaded. And then this is the Office 365 adoption preview, which is really, really cool statistics directly tied into your data in Office 365. So this is my actual data about how people are using my, my whole tenant, my Office 365 tenant. And then those are the dashboards. And then when you go to reports, here's and this is the one I'm going to hone in on because this is the one that I used as part of my demo to find something very specific and useful we could do with it. So I have a lot of tabs also on all these, on this report. So I have this whole information that's built in telling me about this adoption content pack. And then I wonder if that's a link I can send you all. Let me see. Yeah, here we go. I'm going to send you this anyway. I don't know if they got rid of this Office 365 adoption content pack as something that's downloadable because I've had it for actually a couple of years, but there's the link that it sends you to see if y'all can get that if you want, if they still have it. And then this is an overview of my Office 365 adoption, product usage. So it's got all this information about my users, where they come from, physically where they are in the world, their location, all the data about my users and just what they're doing in Office 365. All right, that's really cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take just some product usage information. And what I want to do, the goal here is that I'll put a tile in Power Apps that's going to point directly to my usage information about the products, and I want to filter it down to a specific department. So I'll show you kind of the way to put the filter in there, and then we'll talk about a couple of ideas about how you could pass that filter information to it. So I'll take this, this is last month percentage of users active in a product. So what you can do is you can just pick the workspace. This was in my workspace. And I'm going to pick my Office 365 adoption preview. And then the tile was this last month. Let's just take a look at this one, last month percent of users. Now it's just a general, it's just everybody. So there's nothing specific about it. It's just pointing to that one little tile that exists. So what if I want to be able to filter it by a certain department? Because I have all the information about my users and I know their Active Directory information as to what departments they're in. So when I look down here, let's see. I think one of them actually had a list of users, maybe not. Oh yeah, here it is. No, that's not users. Anyway, it's got just user data. So department is one of the columns in for your user data. So what I did, let me show you just what I did real quick, and then I'll show you how I did it. So I've got this. So I've got three different. These are just departments in my little test tenant, and then we've only got some fake users in here. So I click IT. And then it filters it down to just showing IT. And let's go to executive. And then 100% inactive. SharePoint is active only in OneDrive for Business. And I go back to IT. So this is filtering this tile, this data, to show only data about users in these departments. So that's the filter I'm using. This can only be done with equals, as far as I know from what I read today. Of course, that could change pretty soon. It can only be done with equals. It can only be done with text. So this is the department. I'm saying the department equals something very specific. So the first thing you do is you need to get something called the tile URL. So when I first insert, let me insert it again. When I first insert this and I pick my my dashboard and I pick my tile, I need to go get this tile URL. So I take this whole thing and I copy it to my clipboard. I put it over in Notepad. So I need that. So let me delete that again. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my filter on the end of it. So I'm going to add this ampersand $. Let me see if I can make the text bigger here. There. I'm adding this to the end of the URL. So I'm saying ampersand $ filter equals user state / department equals EQ and then IT in single quotes. Don't copy and paste it off of this website of the instructions I sent you, because it will put the quotes and some other stuff in there wrong, and it was not working for me because of the fact that I copied and pasted it. So just type it yourself. So let me go back to Notepad. So it was just saying it equals IT. So then this is going to be a variable. And then all I've done in this really simple example is when I click this button, I'm setting the varchart URL to that whole URL, and I'm adding to that exact thing to the end of it, ampersand $ filter equals blah, 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 blah. Okay. And then for executive, I've just copied and pasted. The only thing different is it equals executive. And then same thing for SharePoint, same URL and equals SharePoint. So those are my department names. And then that is setting a variable called varchart URL. And then for the chart itself in this tile URL property, I'm just pointing it to the variable. So knowing this and knowing kind of the syntax and the structure of how it needs to work and what it can do, there's, potentially a lot of cool things you can do with it. So I could do something like have a drop down and have the text that you select be the name of a department, and then have it use the text from that drop down box instead of, me just hard coding it in there, stuff like that. All right. So that is how it works with that one specific thing. Now, what I didn't understand when I read these instructions was what is store and what is territory? Like, where does that data come from? I don't know what store / territory even means in their example. So what I had tried to do initially was to just put department equals IT, because I didn't know what the first thing in front of the slash was. So the way I figured this out was I went into Power BI, and I went to not under dashboards, but under reports. And I went to my data set, opened it up, and then I click edit report. And then you'll be able to see all the actual data itself and what the field names are. So see, by clicking around in here and looking at, just kind of digging and trying to find information about users and departments, I found that there's this table called user state, and there's a field called department. So I also read somewhere in one of the forums this morning when I was reading about this that it doesn't work if you have a space in your table name or in your field name. So it's one of those things I'm not sure if they fixed since then, but mine doesn't have a space. So it's user state is the table / department. So therefore I did user state / department equals IT. All right, so we'll go do just one little cool thing or two little cool things in here. I'll go ahead and add a Office 365 users. And I think I added it. I hate this new interface. If you ever want to turn off this new weird interface, the way it looks over here on the left, which is what I'm going to do right now. It's one of these settings in here. I think it's that thing. Data table control selection. No, that's not it. Oh. I could have sworn it was one of these options down here. Maybe that was it. Anyway, this is it. That first one. Okay. All right, so now when I go to view data sources, yay, it's the old way. So not sure how long that's going to last, but there's my data sources. Okay, so then I've got, I can get information about the currently logged in user. So for example, I'll just stick this on here real quick. So Office 365 users dot my profile dot department. There. So that's me. That's my department. The currently logged in user. That's this is a formula to get it. So maybe I can take this and have my chart actually just by default show me that chart based on the currently logged in users department. So let me just make a copy of that and just put another copy of it. You know what? I'll just break it. It doesn't matter. My workspace, Office 365 adoption. All right, so I just kind of reset it. I just reset the tile URLs, not using the variable anymore. Okay, and then I have to concatenate that. Oh, you know what? I can just do an ampersand. That. Now I haven't tried this. This is one of those things where I'm not sure. You know what? Since it's got so many weird characters in it, I'm just going to use the concatenate is the one that concatenates a bunch of text together. So I'm concatenating that thing that I already had with user state department equals, and then I'm going to try and put the logged in users department in here to make it dynamic. I'm going to put quotes around that. This will be fun, right, Joelle? You never know. At least it's not, at least one of them's double quotes and one of them single quotes so that it doesn't get confused. So I'm going to say the department equals, and then I have to go get that formula for what the currently logged in users department is. That, and then I still need to close quotes around the word IT. Ta-da. Okay, let's see. It worked. Yeah, so that's my I think that's it. That's my percentage for that, just that one department, because I just built this thing that's concatenating the currently logged in users department in there. Cool. All right, that one, you know, that way you're not going to be able to toggle between departments. You're just going to be able to see the one. So don't forget my ampersand filter equals. Oh, yeah. So that must not have been filtered. So let's see, the number here says 69. So you're right. You're right. Thanks. I thought maybe that was not the filtered number, but then it worked. So I was like, okay, all right. Ampersand and a $sign filter equals. Okay. Oh, see, look, it went down to 60. See, it was 69%. That's everybody. And then it was filtered down to IT. It's only 60%. Yay. Okay. All right, so that is your basics about using the Power BI tile. So you can hard code it or you can do simple filters, and that's how you do it. Okay, now let's go ahead and flip over to our next concept, and I'll show you the chart control. Well, let me just do a new screen real quick and just show you just out of the box what a chart control looks like. We have a column chart.
Hey, Laura.
Yeah.
So Larry was asking, he basically said, is it correct that only one person needs to have access to Power BI to set the tiles and put the tile on Power Apps, and other team members can view and drill down the charts? Which, if I remember correctly, if the way you're doing it, the users will have to have a Power BI license, right? Or
they do, yeah.
You have to do that whole like publishing it like anonymously or whatever, like a kind
Yeah.
of tricky
And
thing.
that wouldn't be using Power Apps, I think, if you did it that way. Yeah, everybody has to have a license. It will prompt you just like any other connectors that you use in here. It's going to prompt you to use your authentication to Power BI. So you can't just have one person create it that has a license and everybody can see it. Yeah. So everybody has to have a license. All right, so here are, and those of you who've taken our advanced Power Apps class, we had a whole module on what was it? It's all visuals and animation, and charts is inside of there. So this might be a review for you. So this is what it looks like out of the box when you insert just a chart control, and it gives you some fake data. So you actually have this little grouping inside of here. So if you want to get down specifically to the chart itself, you have to click on the chart on the left, and you're going to have some additional little properties about it. So you have what items. So for the items property, right now it just has a pie chart sample, but you could just change it to be some other set of data that you have. And then it's got just similar, if you've used charts in Excel before, it's got a lot of just the similar concepts having to do with the different colors of things and series. And they have different settings depending on what type of chart it is, like the grid style, axes, and all that kind of fun stuff. Now, so if I just take this and I just point it to, I'll just take this one. And if I just point it to my data, like a task list, that looks kind of ridiculous, right? So it's just every single individual item in the task list. So what you need to do is use the group by function to have some sort of groupings, because you probably want to show tasks by status, group by status, or group by who they're assigned to, or some more useful numbers other than just every individual task is represented in the bar, right? So just by itself, just pointing it to an existing list of something isn't the most useful. So I'm going to go to our third concept now, but then if we have time at the end, maybe I can dig into that whole group by thing and show you how to do something like this, like make it actually show like customers and hours, that kind of thing. All right, so now let's go to, so that was the out of the box, just Power BI and out of the box chart controls. And now let's go to the from scratch. So this is the concept that it uses. Watch this. It's animated. So this is what Chris created. He spent hours and hours and hours doing a lot of math, figuring this out. And it's actually dynamic. So it changes, the bar lengths change and things like that according to, its size on the page. And so it's all dynamic. And what we're using in here is, it's a component. So this is a component that we're actually selling on our website for $50. But there we have a coupon today. Bar Graph 50 is the coupon that you can use. And I put a link in the chat window to get it for 50% off. So, but that's what it does out of the box. But it's a component that you can insert anywhere and uses your own list of items. And he added all these different, basically different types of information. You can set it yourself. So like the fill color, you can put your own color in here, the graph bar height, column fill. So all these different things are like parameters that Chris added in here that will be passed to this chart to customize it. Basically, if you want to change like the widths of these columns and the colors of the bars and even the whole color set. So it's all very granular that you can customize. All these parameters that he created these in the component. But what it's doing is it's using labels. So it's got a gallery. So here's your gallery. And all these colors, all the bars going across are labels. And the labels have a width, right? So let's see, the text that it's going to show on this is the value. So you have a title, which is like item 1, and the value, which is the number. So the text is going to show what the value is, but then you have width. So having a width that's dynamic is the key to being able to have your own kind of charts. So what you can do is set your width to be like, the number of completed projects you have, or some number and metrics from your actual data. So having your width and height and different sizes of things, being able to point it to some piece of data and have it be dynamic, that's really what you need to know about how that works. So these are different labels. And he did a ton of math in making these so that, like when it expands, they all kind of go evenly, and just there's a crap ton of information behind the scenes there. But the gist of it is that these are all labels. So you could use labels or rectangles, and the labels just have a color. And so in this case, that color, that fill color of the labels is a variable, but that's just, that's the color that your chart is going to be. All right, so let's go back to this concept. So, and I'm going to take just some actual data. So I'll do it one more time so you can see how cool it is. I need to put like a little animation of this on the actual web page where we sell this. I still haven't done that. But I'm going to go and just take a task list and do something that is just going to look at the task percentage complete and do just something like this from scratch, just really quick. So I'll create a new screen. Let's see, what are you doing? Your Power App is yours, also including intake form inside. Oh, y'all are talking to each other. I'm sorry. Please be careful about posting a Power BI data. Oh yeah, so I guess, and he's talking about don't post Power BI data to like publicly to the web. Yeah, that's a good idea. And thanks you all. Glad you like my haircut. Okay, so I was catching up on the conversation in the chat. Okay, let me create a new screen. And I'm going to do, again, this is just from scratch, so it's going to be ugly, but I'm going to put a gallery in here that's going to have my task list. And that is a task list. I'll show you what it looks like over in SharePoint. I made it very ugly by adding all these different colors and stuff just in SharePoint using that JSON stuff, which is totally different than what you can do in Power Apps. But it's just a task list with a % complete column. So that is very colorful, right? Who would ever want to see that in the real world? Okay, so my data is going to be my task list, and then I'll just do a quick little layout here with just a title that'll just have the names of my tasks. And make that wide. And then I also want to see the percentage complete, so I'll stick a label in here and put that as % complete. And this is not showing as a percentage. Chris, can you, so I don't have to build this formula from scratch. It's not really pertinent to having this function, what I'm about to do, but can you send me the formula to make it like say the number as a percentage on the screen? Like if it's a 1 or a 0.6 or something like that. Like if it's a 1, it should say 100. I just don't feel like doing the math right now. It's kind of out of the scope of what I'm doing. All right, so this is going to show your % complete. And then here's the key though. It doesn't really matter what this number looks like. I want to show like a little miniature graph. And Excel does this too, right? Excel has got those cool little conditional formatting things that you can do where you can make it show little built-in bar graphs next to things. So this is kind of mimicking that same functionality. So what I'm going to do is I'll just insert a label. Again, it can be a label, rectangle, a button, anything that's got a width, which is pretty much any kind of control. So instead of, I don't even have to have it show any text. I could actually have the label show what the percentage complete is, but then that would be awkward if you're trying to show text and then it's 0% complete, and then what color would your font be and that kind of thing. So I'm I'm going to have my rectangle, my label be just blue here. And then the key is going to be the width. So the width is going to be this item dot percent complete times 100. There we go. Look at that. So the most percent complete something can be is, 1, which is 100%. So then that's going to show those bars at having a width of percent complete times 100. Now, if I want this to be like wider, to go wider across the screen, let's just go look at it real quick. So there are all my percent. See, this one's 0. Do the dishes? No. And then, so I've got all these little, so that's the number of pixels that each one is. And I can move it, I'll move it over a little bit. So that's the number of pixels. So if I want it to be like maybe take up more real estate on the page, and it's still, they're still going to be relative to each other, but I did this one like times 200%. So let's go see that. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. So that's just super basic information about how to make that look like, have a variable width, right? Oh, so Nick said just multiply it times 100. Yeah. I thought there was like a more specific formula than that. Times 100. And then just stick a percentage on the end of it. There. I guess I made that more complicated than it needed to be, huh? Sorry, never mind, Chris. So there's your percentage complete, and then visually showing the percentage complete. And then you could even, make it show a different color if it's a different percentage. So let's see, fill color. Let's see. Percent complete is less than 0.5 red, otherwise green. I don't know. Just showing a quick concept here. Oh, look at that. So the ones that aren't complete enough are showing red. So it's just a really quick way of doing that. So getting any ideas? What do y'all think? This makes this look very approachable, right? All you're doing is making the width be relative to some number in your data. So what kind of examples, what kind of data do you have that you're thinking that you might be able to use this on? Are y'all coming up with ideas? All right, let's see. Okay, so that was Power BI. And then from scratch, and then really from scratch, just starting with a completely empty screen. And then our cool little Power Apps bar chart component. And then let's go back to, and I kind of, wanted to make sure I wanted to have time to show you all this stuff. Now, what I showed you before was just taking, I'm going back to the chart controls and how you can make them more useful. But this is, oh, great. I'm glad you are getting good ideas from this. This is going to be pretty useless when you're just basically plopping the name of one of your, lists in here. It just, every single item's represented. But you really want to have it grouped by, if you have products, like how many people bought products in a certain category, or how many tasks do you have that are in progress. And so you want it to actually give you things that are grouped by something. So in this other example, I went ahead and did a grouping. I'll go ahead and clear this. Now this is like advanced level Power Apps right here. That's why I saved it for last. Because what I'm going to show you is using collections and using add columns function and some really advanced stuff. So hopefully, so you kind of already have to know a lot of these concepts in Power Apps to be able to follow this part. But it's pretty neat. Okay, so what I have, and I'm going to break this down as to what I'm doing here, is I have projects and I have a timesheet and I have customers. So let's go look at what those look like in here. Customers here, and I have projects here, and projects has a lookup to the customer. So that's how they're related. And then my timesheet, and this is a whole other app too that you've probably seen me demo that's got the customers, projects, and timesheets. So this is my timesheet data, and this is got basically each timesheet entry is related to a project. So that's my data, and it's got lookup fields relating these across. So the first thing I'm doing is collecting my projects. Now, when I'm collecting a whole SharePoint list like this, it's not going to be you're not going to be able to do something like take a list with 5,000, 10,000 items on it and do this on it. So I'm collecting this whole SharePoint list, but collecting an entire SharePoint list is not a best practice. So you'd probably want to have a subset of whatever your data is. It gets way more, this, and I'm showing you, gets way more complicated when you have a large set of data. So this is a small set of data. So this is manageable. It's not going to get too insane, but collecting, I've done a collect on something that had like 1,000 items, and it took a minute. Like it would bog down your app and for people to have to wait for it to collect. Collect means it's grabbing that entire list and pulling it into the Power App. Oh yeah, some great ideas in the chat. Awesome. Okay, so I'm collecting my SharePoint list called projects. Now what I'm doing here with this add columns thing, add columns means, so when I'm collecting something, a collection is just, I've got this list of stuff, and I can make the columns be whatever I want them to be, and I can even patch to collections and write other data to it. So I can do this add columns, and I'm going to add another column. So I'm going to grab that whole list of projects, and I'm going to I just want the customer name for each project. So instead of having to have this big complex customer lookup, since it's a lookup field for each project, I'm just going to the customer lookup.value, which is, you could probably rewind this and go see what my customer lookup field looked like in SharePoint for my projects list. It's a lookup. So I'm getting the dot value, which is going to give me the name of the customer. So I'm adding a column. I'm putting a new column as I'm collecting it called customer name. So let's go look at that first collection real quick. So my collection is called COL projects. So then I have COL projects, and it's getting, this is the column that it added, because before that it looked like this. It was this messy, a lookup field that's not as easy to get to the data in it. So it added the customer name. All right, so now I have the customer name, I have collect projects. And then the next thing that I'm collecting is I'm collecting my timesheet. And again, this is just a set of information, so my timesheets doesn't have too many items in it, but I am collecting that whole thing. So as I'm collecting my timesheet, so I'm doing that add columns thing again. This add columns thing is one of those things that I always had this mental block, because it's so weird that you're collecting something and adding a column as you're collecting it. So you have to put the add columns inside of the clear collect. So I'm adding columns to, here my actual data is my SharePoint list called timesheet, and then I've got cust, which is the column that I'm creating. So I purposefully gave these different names. See, I've got customer name and cust. I did this on purpose so I could tell the difference, so it's easy to know kind of what I'm dealing with. If every single one of these in every list was called customer, I'd probably have issues in here, Power Apps would get confused and I would get confused. So I'm giving them different names. So I've got cust in here. And then I'm doing a lookup. I'm adding a column called cust. And then I'm looking up and getting to my collection of projects that I already collected. And I'm getting where the ID equals project ID, and I'm getting the customer name. So basically, my timesheet doesn't already have the customer name in it. It's just got what project it's associated with. But when I add this column, it can actually add this information from the other collection as it's collecting all the time. So let's look at my collect time. So this is all my timesheet entries, and I've got my hours here, and I've got my cust. So this is the column that it did when it was adding columns to just give me the customer name, because I want to know the hours per customer. So that's the goal for my chart, is just a chart that's got hours per each customer. And then see, none of this other data in my timesheet, just has the name of the customer. So that's all I want. So I'm doing the add column. And then I'm doing another collect. So this is where we do the group by function. So this is doing a clear collect. I'm calling it collect grouping. And let me go ahead and get the group by function information. This group by is really fun. They've got a full tutorial in here. So look, it's got an example, and it actually walks you through doing this exact thing and creating your own grouping, and with step-by-step information of just kind of some static data. So I'll put that in the chat here in the general channel. So that's the group by function, which is going to group all of your data into whatever column you define. So you do have to know what you want to group it by. All right, so I'm going to group it by cust, and I'm going to call that grouping customer. Again, beneficial that I'm giving them different names in here. So I'm going to my collection, collect time that I just got. I'm getting that data, and I'm grouping it by customer. So this is my call grouping. So let's go look at call grouping. And you all let me know. I might have some spare time, so let me know of these three. Let me know in the chat. Power BI, or the out-of-the-box controls, or the from scratch. Would you like me to spend more time on? Because I probably only have like 5 more minutes of this, and we have like 15 more minutes. So you all just kind of give me your feedback in the chat window. And I guess Joelle helped me figure out what the most popular one is. Okay. So when I do my grouping, it creates these little subtables. So then it gives cust, which is my customer, is sort of this parent in here. And then when I drill down, then it's got all the records for that customer inside of it. So this is going to have timesheet entries. So Flying High Outfitters. These are all the timesheet entries just for Flying High Outfitters. So that is what my collection looks like that's grouped. And you can even do other cool things with a grouped collection, like you show it in a gallery and show like a little sub gallery that's got like this little child subset in here too. And then, okay, so y'all are starting to say, if you say from scratch, let me know if you have any more specific ideas too about in addition to what I already showed. Okay, so I'm getting my grouping. So then once I have my grouping, then I just need to know the number of hours per customer. Because I need to know, all I need to know for this chart is what the name of the customer is and how many hours I spent on that customer. Those are the only 2 pieces of information it needs, really. So then I've got another collection happening. So I'm doing a call cat. I can call this call cat sum. I had another one that I was doing called category instead of customer. I'll change this. Collect customer sum. And then this is going to break this thing. That's okay. I want it to be named correctly so you can tell what is going on in there. Because this collection, this last collection, is what is the items property for my column chart. All right, let's go back to the, what is that error? Oh, yeah. That's just where I'm clearing them all out. Okay. All right, now I've got it named correctly. My last one. I'm doing another add columns. So I'm taking this collection where I did the grouping, that one where I showed you that just had the name of the customer and then all the little sub records. And then I'm getting a sum of the hours column for each customer. So I'm doing add columns, and I'm doing a new column called sum of hours. And then I'm doing a sum function that's got the customer list, the customer column in there, dot hours, and I'm returning it as hours. So what is customer dot hours? So customer dot hours is in here. I've got customer, and then I've got dot, as I'm drilling in, and then hours is this column here in SharePoint. So customer is of this, like Contoso, and that's the name of, it makes me look like I can widen this, but that's the name of this column. And then dot hours is that more specific information inside of it. And then it's returning me the hours. Okay, so then when I collect, then the magic that happens is it's doing all those different collections in a row, collecting all my projects, collecting all my time, collecting into a grouping, and then doing one more clear collect that does customer sum, and that's where it's creating this collection that's got just the customer and the hours, which is this one. See how simple that is? So cust sum of hours. It still has this little extra information in here. But the customer name and the sum of hours is what I need for my chart. So then my chart is, let's go look at that. That's my items is cust sum. And then my labels is, the labels are the name of the customer down here. And then my series are just the sum of hours. And then you could just do your colors, more specific colors if you wanted to. But those are the only two pieces of data that I'm using. All right. I feel like there was something else weird about items. It's got a lot of just little nitty-gritty things that you can go in here and tweak, just as far as how you want it to look. Oh yeah, that's a good idea, Nick. Let me take that. I'm going to put that, I'll just paste it right there. There we go. All right, there's that in the chat. And all right, so a couple of you decided to vote for from scratch. Let's go see if we can, what we can do from scratch. What else? We got 10 minutes left. So this is the one that I built from scratch with the bars going across. So if you wanted it to be bars, vertical bars instead, then you would do, I guess that's what let's see, we'll just show how that would work. Then for my gallery, I would insert a horizontal gallery instead of vertical. And my data source would be the same, my task list. And then layout, do blank. And then I'll start insert a label that's got the title of the projects. Oops. Ooh, what if I did my collection of the customers and the sums? then I'm kind of mixing up the group by with this concept of having the from scratch chart, right? Ooh, okay. Let's see. So now I've got this data about my customers, and then I've also got their hours here. Sum of hours. And then I can do like this label itself can have a height of however many hours. Let me narrow this down a little. Make sure this text, the name of the customer, I can make sure it's like centered and then it wraps and all that stuff. Auto height. There we go. Okay. And then I've got this. So this can be the height. This item dot sum of hours. So now my height is that many pixels. So this one's like 106.75, and that's how many pixels it is. I didn't give it a fill color. That would help, huh? Interesting. Now, if I want it, now right now they're going from the top down, and that's their height. So I'd want them to start at the bottom and all have the same. Ooh, how could you even do that? To have it reversed. First of all, let me change my font color. Maybe this font will show both if it's showing or not showing. Let me see. Yeah, the better idea for doing the text behind these would be to have the label be a separate thing, by the way. That's, Chris, do you know off the top of your head how you can make, you don't even know what I'm talking about, do you? Because you're doing something else. Chris probably knows because he's like absolute Power Apps guru. I've got the height. The height of all these little labels are, you know, like a number from my list, but the Y is the same for all of them. So it's like the Y would have to be different instead of the height. Ooh. Let me see. Yeah, like a regular bar chart. Let me see. I'll put that at the bottom and say Y equals. So let me change the height to something else. This is fun. All right. I think I can do this. I'll just say the height is, well, the height will have to be something too, but the Y will also have to be, hold on. Y is, yeah, minus label. Yep. Oh, there we go. I did it. So let me just, I'll just do like -5 more to make it go up a little higher. I'm just kind of raising them up. You can see. All right. Look at that. That worked. Yes, we all worked together and we got it to work. That's fun stuff. So, but you can see how just the idea here is that sky's the limit with shapes and sizes and heights and widths, and you know, you can have a circle and do a circumference or something like that. So yeah, so that's how I did it. Is I did the height was the height was the sum of hours, but then the Y is the parent.y. Parent is the gallery in this case, minus that label's height. So the label's height, again, if I want it to be bigger, like higher, I can do like sum of hours times, I don't know, 1.5 or something like that, just so it's a little higher. But, you know, you might have customers that have hundreds of hours. So that's one of those things that Chris kind of calculated for when he did all the math that he did behind the scenes in that cool other one. This one is that it actually looks at the shortest and the longest, and you don't want the shortest to be nothing like it was in mine. If it's 0 or 1 or whatever, you don't want it to not be showing, and relative to the longest one. So there's a whole bunch of math going on behind the scenes in here where he's kind of, you know, dispersing them out like that so it doesn't look too out of whack. Yeah. Normalize the data is what Chris, yeah, that's the technical term. All right. Any last questions? That was fun. We have, let me know if you have questions just in the chat. But we have our live online Power Apps and Flow class coming up the week of the 20th. And so that's 3 days of Power Apps and 2 days of Power Automate. And you also get 2 months free of our Ultimate subscription. And then also our Ultimate subscribers, just all the Ultimate subscribers, whether it's monthly or yearly, we've been having these fun little office hours meetings that some of you are in, some of you that are in the chat right now. And so you come to me with your specific sort of business solutions and business and issues, that things you're trying to do in SharePoint or Power Apps or whatever. And then we discuss them and we mock them up and we kind of go through it, and we all just kind of get in teams and talk through stuff and figure things out and talk about best practices and just all kinds of, and we basically have, we have a little forum where people can kind of vote each other's things up and decide, you know, what we're going to talk about. And we do it every 3 weeks. So, all right. Well, thanks everybody for coming. Let's see, we have, let's see, I'm gonna go to IW Mentor. Oops, I can't spell. I'm still sharing my screen here. All right. On the schedule, I actually started putting power hours on here. So this is today. So we have our next power hour on the 15th, and then that next week is when we have our class, but we still do have our Ultimate Office Hours meeting on the 22nd. It's after class, and we do these at all different times of the day too. So this one's going to be at 8 p.m. Central. So yeah, that's where you can find out when the next power hour is going to be. And then this new Power Apps animated chart thing that I was talking about, when you just go to all courses and scroll to the bottom, that's where that is. And I still have to go in here and put like a little animation, but that's where you can buy that. It's $50. And your coupon for you all watching Power Hour for 50% off is, what did we say it was? It's Bargraph 50. So that's your special code for being a fan and watching Power Hour, and I appreciate you all. And I guess that just about wraps it up. Thanks everybody for coming and for all of your helpful insights too as we built this. This was a fun one, all the different ways you can do charts. So we'll see you all next time. Over and out.